So now we're moving on to figuring out the how to estimate with area and length. And measurement is something that you obviously need a unit of measure for. Well, that's kind of obvious, but it needs to be stated anyhow. If you're not given a unit of measure, then you have to decide what unit is appropriate. And you need to basically logically figure out what you know, like how long a foot is, or how big an inch is, or how big a mile is, and just logically figure it out. Now, area is a concept that some people have difficulty with. It's the idea of the amount of two-dimensional space something takes up. And that's a fancy way of saying it. Just if you have a square of something, like if you imagine post-it notes or something like that, how many post-it notes fit on a desk, or would fill up the blackboard? That would be how many square units there are. And that's kind of the overall way of thinking about it, because area is generally done in square units. Well, it's always done in square units, unless you go ahead and use something like acres or stuff like that, but that's not something we're going to be working with. So now to choose an appropriate unit of length for estimating for each measure. Now for these here, we got the length of a cat from nose to tail. So what would we choose for that? Well, I think that's kind of obvious. Unless you got some mutant cat, then it would probably be feet or possibly inches. But feet is probably, well, feet or inches. Wouldn't be going ahead and choosing miles or anything like that. And if we were to go ahead and look at the height of Royce-Moore School, well, what would it be? It wouldn't be miles. It wouldn't be inches. It would probably be, again, feet. Now, if you choose a reasonable estimate and you explain your choice, if you have the depth of a diving pool and you're trying to figure out which one is the better choice, well, 10 inches or 10 feet. 10 inches, not a good idea to be diving into a 10-inch pool. So we're going to say 10 feet because logically, if you're diving, that's a better depth. If you hit that pool, you're going to be going pretty fast. How far is Tom Brady in honor of the Super Bowl coming up? That's important to know. The Super Bowl coming up in a little bit next week. So Tom Brady's longest touchdown pass, is it 99 yards or 99 feet? Well, give you a hint here. I can probably throw the ball 99 feet. 99 yards? No way. But actually, this is a lot. He threw the ball and then the guy ran. But still, it is one of those records that will never be broken. So the correct answer is 99 feet. And we just explained that by saying, well, he's a quarterback. There's 100 yards in the field, so that's where we're at. Now, if we were asked to estimate the area of this figure, if each square represents 10 meters squared, all we'd start doing is we'd start going through the ones that are filled in all the way. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So we got 26, so we got at least 260 meters squared. So 26 times 10 meters squared. Now we start looking at the ones that are mostly filled in. And we kind of ignore the ones that aren't filled in very much at all. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, let's see here. 1. Just going to put it down as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we kind of look at these ones here, and maybe that plus that is 7. Maybe that plus that is 8. Maybe that plus that is 9. And then we can kind of ignore the rest. So then we got 9 times 10 meters squared. So if we add these all up, we're going to end up with 33 350 or 35 total squares, so times 10 meters squared. So what are we going to end up with? We're going to end up with 350 meters squared. Now this is really important to pay attention to. A lot of students, they'll just count up the squares and say, well, there's 35. Well, you got to go ahead and make sure to know what each square is worth. This was just sort of an interesting graphic, I thought, because here we have Homo sapiens people, about 5 to 6 feet tall, and it would take, if you want to think about it this way, if we were using this as the standard unit, the amount of people, a person as a standard unit, and they were 5 feet tall, how many brachiosauruses, how many people would fit, would it take to be as tall as a brachiosaurus? It would take 10. It would take let's see here, 20 feet tall. It would take about 4 to make it as tall as that. It would take about 3 to get as tall as a giraffe. So that's just another way of thinking about it. So one more time here. Remember the thing that I mentioned about Tom Brady in the Super Bowl? And also this thing here, this blue whale, that is just massively long. That would take about 20 people if you were to lay people end on end. This guy right here, end on end. Blue whales, huge. And they're still around, thankfully. So we're all done.